record. Okay, so I want to have a simple web app, and the way that I'm going to think about this is let's do like a simple currency converter app, and the only thing that we're going to do is essentially have, let's say we want to have, when we go visit our app, we want to have like an input field for the amount. Let me zoom in a little bit like this. And we want to have an input field for the currency, and then we'll have like a submit button. Something, oh, this is painful. So maybe I should use text instead. So we'll have, like, say for example, I want to put in like 100, and this will be United States dollars, and everything will just be converted to British pounds at the moment. And I am only going to be able to convert US dollars at the moment, but that's all we're going to focus on. So when I go visit in my browser, I go visit the index of my application. This is what I want to see: a form that I can input things into and then hit submit. And so when I do that, in order to see this form, first of all, we're going to make a GET request. And go to the index. And so this is what I want to see. And when I want to send information, when I hit submit, I'm going to send a post request like so, with the information in these boxes. So it'll be something like as form data, we'll send across the amount, and we'll send across the currency. I guess we should call it from currency rather than to, because it's always going to be to GBP. From currency. So in this case, AG will be like 100. And this will be United States dollars. And when I post it, here's what I'll do, sort of like my app logic. So do the conversion here, app logic, convert, some kind of conversion will happen. And when I post the information across, I then want to render a different page, which is going to be, say, it will be another small little page over here as a result, and it will be something like, I don't know, let's say it's $100. That should be super simple and say it's something like 80 pounds. Let's just do a 0.8 exchange rate. 80 pounds. That's what I'm going to see on the page. Let's keep it like that. Okay, so when I send a GET request, I'll get my response back with the form. When I send a POST request, it's going to then redirect to slash results, let's say. My POST request, I want it to go to, what's a good name for a POST request? Let's just call it to convert, maybe. This is, next time I'll try and make sure my pen's working. Okay. This is how I'm thinking about it. I have a browser. I'm going to go to the index, which will see a very simple form. I'm going to input some values in these forms, hit submit. I'll send it as a post request with the other information. My server will then take out that information from the params, do some logic, convert it, and send back some HTML with just the sort of result of the conversion. So that's what I want to see on the page. So I'll have two GET requests, one for the index and one for the result. One post route for convert that does the logic. Cool. Just give me a thumbs up if we're sort of like so far broadly understanding the sort of vision of where I'm going with this. Yeah, cool. Thanks.
I did want to ask,
yeah.
why isn't there an arrow with like a get to the / result?
Yeah, cool. So when I get in my post request, there will be, but it won't be activated by my browser. The post request, I'll have like a redirect from a post request because they should always be separate. If I'm reading and sending data back, it should be as a get request. So rather than have a direct response from the post request, there'll be like a get request from here. That goes to get results. Response of which comes back and gives me the HTML.
Okay.
So you always want to split up. You want to send data through a post request to change or update the state of your application, and anything that gets sent back to the browser should be via a GET request. Broadly, this is a rule of thumb, and we'll break it in maybe in a couple of months' time. But at the moment, when you think cleanly about separation between, essentially think about like reading and writing, right? GET requests are just reading data, and a post request is like writing data, and they should be separate. We shouldn't mix the two together. Because imagine if you wanted to just like see a page, you had to like update the state of your application by posting the information. So you want to separate the two. Post is just for updating. So that's when like I'll do some conversion, and then I'll make a GET request to fetch the HTML and send it back to the browser. Good question. Any other thoughts or questions at the moment? Cool. So when we're diagramming or modeling things out from requirements, this is always where we should start. Just get a bunch of these client-server models up and start diagramming. Like what ordinarily I'd have multiple of these diagrams, and I would have drawn them all out with my pen, but I've done a little bit slightly hacky and maybe not representable on this because I'm not using my pen. It's a little bit difficult. But always start here, diagram out, try and have clear in your mind the kinds of requests you want to send and keep it as simple as possible, because we can always make it more complicated later. But the initial version is going to be super simple. And here I've identified that I'm going to have like a main index route, I'm going to have one post route, and then I'm going to have a result route. Cool. All right, so let's take this diagram, and I'll keep it in the background, but let's build our app. Okay, it's got an entirely empty directory, and so let's build this from scratch. Let's create our gem file, and let's add a few dependencies. So let's add RSpec. Let's add Capybara. And let's add our web framework, Sinatra. Cool. So what I did is it gave me my dependencies, added it in. I don't need that anymore. And it's locked everything. So I'm ready to go. Let's set up RSpec. Let's initialize it. It's created my config file. I'm just going to whack in format documentation because I like to see verbose output. Spec helper. Just don't need all this bloat, so let's just get rid of it all. What I do need in here, however, is to set up my app, right? So let's require, I may have to look at the installation docs in a second. I need to go like something like Capybara RSpec, and require, I guess I'll put it all in the app folder. So I'm going to require my app.rb, and then I think Capybara needs to know about the applications. So let's say it'd be something like currency converter app. That's a mouthful of a name. Fine. So I think it's something like this. Let me just run the, see whether it actually picks up first. Cool. So far, so good. So it managed to load. Our spec has got to here, but like, what are you doing? There is no such file. So let's create it. I'm going to create an app folder. I usually keep everything in the app folder. That's just about web applications. And we'll create app.rb. So let's then see what's happening. Let's get rid of this file. Let's get rid of this. Cool. Uninitialized constant currency converter app. That's what I was expecting to happen. So now let's go ahead and make a class. It's just a class in the day. It's not a web application yet because we haven't included any Sinatra stuff. So let's force this to happen. Let's write our spec. Folders, features. And this is going to be something like, I don't know, convert currencies. Yeah, spec. Require the spec helper to make sure that we are setting up every time and we're setting up our test properly. So Capra knows what app it is, what app to use. Require spec helper, and then we have a feature test that says, I don't know, currency conversions do, and we need an example. I guess we can use a scenario from US dollar to GBP. I guess that should be a context. And this can be something like, I know, 100 USD is, okay, clearly this would never happen, right? But let's just imagine this is the example, and that we've locked all exchange rates forever. The actual domain is not the point. Fine. Let's do that. Okay, so first thing that we need to do, I guess that should be a scenario for feature testing, is, let's go back to my diagram. First thing I want to do is visit the home page, make a GET request. Visit the home page. Once I visit the home page, what I want to happen is this form to be on the page. So then I want to do something like fill in. Left is the amount, right? Let's call it the amount. With, this is the syntax, I might have to look it up, with 100. Let's fill in the from currency, let's call it, from currency with, we're only doing US dollars at the moment. Cool. Visit the home page, fill in those two boxes, and then we want to click submit, which is going to be like, I don't know, convert. Go. Be converted. Then I guess we make our expectation, expect the page to have something on the page, some content. What do we want to have? Result is going to be super simple. We're going to say absolutely nothing apart from like the result, all right? So let's just go 80 pounds. Okay, so this is my first feature test. This is what I want to happen as expected from a user interacting with this application. Go to the browser, see this form, and let's start there. Click the button convert, and expect the page to have 80 pounds. So let's run it. Cool, so we need a rack app. A rack just means anything that's uses rack, and Sinatra and Rails, all these Ruby frameworks use rack. So don't worry about the specific word, and just think that it should be a Sinatra app. So here's where I need to make sure it's a Sinatra app. So let's require Sinatra base and make sure it's able to inherit those important methods. Okay. Cool. Capybara element not found. That's always where you should be at the beginning of a fail, so the end of a failing test, right? And that's when you can, you've got to the right place, and we can now sort of make this work. We're unable to find it, so let's try to go to the index, and says can't find it. So at the moment, there's probably some kind of Sinatra 404 that says file not found, because we haven't written any root handlers. So let's write our first root handler that says listen to any requests made to the index as a GET request, and then execute this block of code. What I want this to happen, what I want this to do, according to my diagram, is render a form. So let's use ERB to do that for us. And conventionally, ERB looks in the views folder from wherever this app is. So let's create a views folder and add in an index.erb, where let's quickly build an HTML page with a form that goes to the /name that will, no, not a name, why name? Convert. And we're going to send a post request. That's what we're doing right here. We send a post request to convert, and that's what we want to do. I'm looking at this part here. Cool. And then we want an input field. This is going to be a text. The name is going to be, what did I say the name is going to be? Amount. And there's no value. I don't need a value. The other one's going to be the from currency. Okay, so the input from currency. Get rid of that. Don't need this. But we need a button. Submit. And in my test, I called it something, didn't I? Where's my test? I call it convert. Okay. So that's literally all I'm going to have on the page. Nothing fancy about it. Just a form that has a submit button that takes the text, two input fields with one called amount, one called from currency, and posts it to /convert. Cool. So let's run our test and see how far we've got. Okay, so failure, expect page of content £80. So we've got to the expectation, which means that we've executed this line successfully. We said these two lines, these three lines successfully. We've got the expectation. It says, sorry, Sinatra doesn't know the root because in the app.rb file, we don't have anything to handle a post convert. So that's the information that we now need to go do. So let's go here and add in our post convert route. Let's then run our spec again. And we haven't sent it back any sort of response. So when it tries to look at the content, it's like, I'm sorry, there's nothing here. So here's where we need to do some logic. And at the end of it, I want to redirect, maybe like this, to a result page. And let's have a result page that we ask ERB to render a result page. Now, what I want to do here is somehow get information from here. So like here's like do some stuff, and then I'll be able to access it here. Get the result and send it to the client, in this case the browser. So we need to extract some of the params. Let's double check that we got all the params coming nicely through here. So we have, as params coming through, we have the amount, 100 from currency USD. So that looks like it's nice and good. I guess we could let's just do the logic here first, and we can extract that later. So what we want to do is take out from the amount and from the params, the from currency. It's going to get quite messy, isn't it? From currency, amount, and what I really want to do is actually just wrap this up in an object and do something like conversion.new. So I'm going to delete this in a second because I'll probably have to unit test this. So what I want to do maybe is something that's like conversion. There's a new conversion, and then I can just do something like conversion.results, grab that, whack that in the session, result, something like this, and then access it from here. I think that's what I'm going to do. So let's keep this all commented, because what I now need to go do, now that I've realized that's something that I need to do, is I'm going to write a unit test. Conversion spec. Require conversion. That's the file that I'll write in a second. And it's going to be a class conversion, and I'm going to initialize it with amount and whatever is the from currency. This is not.
Why are you writing that? Yeah, why are you writing that?
I just realized. I just was like, this is clearly me going ahead of what I wanted to do. Describe. That was what I want. That you caught it at the same time I did. I was like, what am I doing? Describe conversion, and what I wanted to do. It converts USD to GBP. So that's I'll keep it simple. I won't do any RSpec stuff at the moment. Let's go. Conversion is a new conversion with, let's do exactly what the test is doing at the moment in the feature test. 100 USD, and I want to expect the conversion dot result to equal string, and it's going to be 80. How's the default? Like this, when it's just an integer, or is it a float? Let's do that. Conversion. Okay, super simple class. It just takes in like a number, and we'll have this standardized exchange rate of 0.8, and that's all we'll do. This shouldn't be complicated. That's not the point. Okay, so let's just run this test at the moment. Bundle exec RSpec. No, RSpec spec units conversion spec. That's what I want. Cool. Now I need to create it. So where are we? Let's create it in the same place. We'll create a lib folder and a conversion .rb. Class conversion Let's initialize it with an amount and a from currency. And, oh, wrong. And those two things, I guess we have one public method at the moment does result. Okay, result, then we do, what's our exchange rate? Something like from rates. I guess we'll start off with only USD at the moment, and that is 0.8. So what I want to do is the amount that will be, like, for example, 100 is going to be multiplied by the whatever comes across here. So this will be the USD string. It will grab it from the rates. It will be a 0.8. So we'll do 100 multiplied by 0.8, which gives us 80. And we get it as a string. I'm going to keep it super simple and just whack a pound sign in front of it. We can do later refactoring. So let's see whether that passes that test. Nope, because I need to have my instance variable here. Cool. Just double check if I went to my test and so it was something like, I don't know, 70 pounds instead. That should fail. Cool. Switch 70, we've got 80. Okay, so that small little class has just got a simple unit test. There could probably be a few more to test different things, but I'm not going to worry about it at the moment. Demonstrated going from a feature test to a unit test, which is good. So back to our controller here. Now that I realize I need this, I can use it. It's now in here. Conversion.new. The amount of conversion. I guess if it's coming in, I need to make sure it's an integer. No, all the way around. And I guess if I'm using the sessions, I need to enable them. And then I want to be able to access this in here. So let's just send it using our locals. Like so. I'll leave that comment in like that. Okay, so I'm going to run the feature test again in just a second. I'm going to read through my work at the moment. I've made a route handler for the index that renders the form. The form has a name and from currency as keys, and when I post that to /convert, it goes to this route. I then extract the information from params and wrap it in this conversion class object, which is responsible for handling the conversion. I ask for the result, I store it in the session, redirect to the result page, and the result page is responsible for knowing what it looks like. And I'm going to build it in just a second. I should render a view from results and pass a local variable called results, and that should hold the value of whatever I put in the session. So let's do result.erb. And the only thing I want here is results. Let's see where we are. Cool. For currency conversion, that's the unit test. Conversion converts USD to GBP. Okay, well, let's notice I actually haven't actually like loaded it in the browser yet on the server. I've just like test driven it. in order to run it, I need a run command. So let's create our sort of application launcher. I need a config. I need a rackup file, and that then does something like run. What's it called? Currency converter app. In order to know what that is, I need to require app. Goes in GATS app, this one here. So in order to know what it looks like, let's run it. Bundle exec rackup. And let's have a look at local host 9292. Oh, very simple web app. So let's do 100 and USD convert. We have an issue at the moment, so we'll have to look at our tests because something is not right. Name error @/convert. We have an initialized constant currency converter app conversion. So from my understanding of this, it means I haven't required the right file in my application. So it's trying to look for the conversion class within currency converter app. And so the way I'm going to fix this is by making sure I've loaded in the right file. So if I look here, it's trying to get this and be like, what is this? Where can I find this? So it tries to find it within this class. And so in order to fix it, I have to just require, where is it? It's in lib, so let's go lib and conversion. Cool. Let's try something else. Let's go like, I don't know, loads of money. Cool. And bundle exec aspect. Cool. It sounds like we're done. So I'm going to pause there. And let's go through any questions, any thoughts. Watching what I did. Let's expand it all so we can see. What did you notice? What are your thoughts? What can I go through to explain in test driving a simple web app with a get route and a post route?
You know, session,
yeah.
And then you put session result. You could name that anything, right? So
which part? By this
so
thing?
line 13, yes. You could have put session. Yeah, whatever. Okay, great.
Yeah, so long as I
it lines
it's
up,
just
yeah.
setting the key to be whatever is the result. Yeah, exactly.
So also, why didn't you use shotgun so that you didn't have to keep so you didn't have to like quit the server and then reload the server?
Great question. I was trying to keep it simple. I think it's a really answer. Ordinarily, you wouldn't be building apps from scratch, so you'd be working on apps that probably already have some kind of hot reloading functions. So it's not necessarily the most common gem to use, but it's a useful one to begin with. Yeah, but otherwise, yeah, shotgun is really useful. As long as you're aware of some of the traps of how it reloads, and so any of your environment variables or scope can sometimes be an issue.
Why didn't you fill in the response at the start on our request server diagram? We didn't fill anything for response.
On this side here.
Yeah.
Down here. Cool. Yeah, that's a really great question. Okay, so why did I not put any information here? So the way that I was thinking about it was, I have two main responses from the initial GET request, and then the result response that comes back. And so in my head, I was like, this is going to be the HTML text that I would send back in the response, these two things here. This has to come back, and then also this has to come back here. So this is what it sees, but really there should be something that's here that says, you know, for the original one, it'll be like something in the body. So this would be information that we would store in the response body, and that would be like the HTML text that represents this form, and the next request for result would be the text for this string £80. Usually I feel I'm pretty clear what the responses are, so I was trying to think about it from the browser's point of view. The response becomes much more important when we deal with non-HTML responses in essentially data in another format like JSON or XML. So, and also if you have any other like status codes. Sometimes you want to make sure that the response comes back as a 404. At the moment, it's super simple, so I'm not worrying about any kind of other status rather than a successful response.
Okay.
But I would encourage you just to get in the habit of knowing what the response looks like if you're not familiar with the different kinds of requests that you're making. But yeah, that's like my honest answer at the moment, because nothing would. It's not important for me at the moment.
You mentioned Ruby handlers on a few occasions. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So these are a bunch of different names that you can call them. The most common ways that we can call them are these are root handlers or root actions or controller actions. So let's put them both down here. Controller actions or root handlers. Controller actions, this is more familiar to the Rails framework. This is more sort of, I guess, common to web frameworks in general across different languages. But the controllers is also synonymous everywhere in terms of the model view controller pattern. And a root is essentially defining with a kind of method and a path. That's a root. You're saying we have a root, a get root at the index. We have a post root at /convert. And the handlers is essentially saying, when we do this, when we have this kind of request, do this bit of code so it handles that request. That's what we mean by the handler part. So if you say, like, you know, show me what your sort of root handler for the index is, we would have a look at it like that. You'd also hear them called controller actions, because these are essentially like behavior, like actions that a controller would do, and this is the a kind of controller. Does that help?
Yes. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. Cool. You can almost think of it like a train wheel, not a train wheel, like a train track route wheel, which spins and sends trains in different places, like at a train garage maybe, where you have like an oncoming track and then a wheel that spins around and sends things off in different directions. Does that reference make sense?
Unfortunately,
like something like we have like a train coming in, and you have like a circle that spins, and usually have like some person here that says, okay, you put the train on it and then it spins around, and then it's now going to be facing this way and it comes off there. And so you have loads of different paths that the train can take, and this is like the controller, this disk. And so there's a lot of ways that you can visualize like a controller is saying, for these kinds of requests, you have different options. But the request always comes in, and then we have to look at what kind of request it is and send it to the right place.
Yeah. Just go on. So you required Sinatra bass. Why require just the bass instead of Sinatra? It's just as it is.
This is up here. So this is a way to write Sinatra that is wrapped in a class, and it's called modular Sinatra. And that's just one way that you don't need to, essentially. Okay. It's just one way to write a Sinatra app. And it feels more comfortable to me because I'm used to objects. Okay. And I recommend it. But you don't need to, you can write it without.
Okay.
Any other thoughts or questions? And we can go Anastasis, Ellen, Amy, Sabir. What are you thinking? What do you notice? What was interesting?
And it was broadly the same structure as the start of the battle challenge. So I didn't see anything here that was unfamiliar. It was just kind of recapping the process to get there.
Cool. Good. That's hopefully the main thing about this demonstration is just making sure we're thinking of things from a test-driven point of view and how we test drive the web app, these routes. And it's definitely about the process. Nice.
Are you going to upload this video on YouTube, Ben?
Yep.
Good, thank you.
Sorry, I just got one more. On the spec helper file, it was line 4, I think it is on that. Shall I just look at the method? Because I didn't really understand this line, capybara.app. So should I just look at capybara doc or?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Capybara docs. Team capybara. Don't install. Get started. Extensive README. Yeah, let's look at your README. Setup requires 2.5 or later. Cool. I'm on version 3. I recommend everyone to go on to version 3. Actually, don't. It's not stable yet. To install, so I added a capybara into my gem file, capybara, and then if the application we're using is a rack app but not Rails.
Okay.
So don't worry about this. We have to essentially tell capybara what is the app that we're using, because it doesn't use. It's not using a browser, right? It uses its own internal headless browser. So you have to essentially specify what's the application to use, which is why in the spec helper, that's the line. That's just how you do it.
Fine. And what's the config.ru file? Firstly, why is it called that? And
just out of convention, the .ru is rackup. So it comes from. No, it doesn't come from. It's just the file and the file extension that's expected in order for rackup to work. And this is part of the thing of being able to build a server and then run your application on it. And this comes from within Sinatra.
Okay, and it's the file used for running your app.
Yep. And it's better to keep it in here. You might have seen things like to write straight from app where you'd have it inside of the class, maybe something like that. Run, I don't know, if, and then checking if to, I don't know, like something like this maybe. As long as it has a run command somewhere, but this is now responsible for not just the logic of your controller, but also running the application. So it's mixing the concerns here. So you should just always keep it out of it in its own file. The convention is to use a rackup file like config.ru.
Okay.
Because you can actually then sort of add more things in here at runtime. So this is what we would call the I guess the what am I doing? The entry point. to the application is like, in order to run an application, this is where we start.
Okay.
And so you might want to at some point add more things in here to say, we're going to load everything from the app folder. We might add more things, and then we want to run the app. And so most of the time you want to sort of think about, especially when you go log your way through other people's code, is like, what's the entry point to the application? And then see the sequence of events that happens. So this is a common pattern to see a config.ru in Sinatra apps, or even Rails apps sometimes. Cool. Any other thoughts or questions? These are all really good questions, Emmett. Cool. Haven't heard much from Anastasis or Sabir. Just want to check in. Any thoughts or questions? You're on mute, buddy.
It's the same thing that we did in battle, so yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Pretty straightforward.
Cool. Awesome. All right then. So let's wrap there. I'm gonna upload this to YouTube and send it across. Any other thoughts or questions? Just send them over, and you can sort of use this approach when we come back to the individual challenge at the end of this week. Yeah, cool, awesome. So let's.
Can I just ask? A couple
please,
more. Sorry.
Yeah.
So in our views file, so when we did for the battle challenge, I noticed you use like this doc type HTML, and I think you did show me it's like HTML then tab, right? So is that how? Because I think would it be fine to just not have any HTML and just write out like to just have result instead of having? Because I guess you could get rid of that and just have the line 8 and that's it, couldn't you?
Yeah, you could. Essentially what this does is gives you a template, and all HTML documents should be composed of a head, which has metadata, and body, which is the window that you see. So at some point we should be in the habit of making sure our HTML looks like that. But when the further we go through this week, next week, and the week after, and whatnot, we'll move away from sort of rendering the whole page at one time in one file, and we might start composing a view from multiple files that are responsible for just a part of the page. And so usually the pattern here is we'll have one file dedicated to like the layout common across the whole application. And then here you'd be right, we would only have this or anything that's specific to the results. Because say for example, I wanted to like change the background color of the body, I have two separate places where I have to do it at the moment. But because I haven't bothered about thinking about layout or anything like that, I'm just saying we're going to keep everything to be one separate HTML documents. But at some point, I'd want to change that and have like a layout file. And I think Sinatra does that. Most frameworks have it. Sinatra layout. Layouts. This will render. Okay, what's happening? We have an index root which says get me the index ERB file and render it, and then also get the post.erb. So it will embed this file into this one. And so we can think of like the layout on the outside, and we can start sort of like inserting different view files. So there must be a better way. I might try and find better documentation for that. There's something here. Because you at some point want to use yield. All right, I'm going to stop thinking about it right now. But yes, that's usually the common pattern. But otherwise, it's a good question. Next question.
So I don't know if this is appropriate for now, but when me and Sophia were pairing yesterday, we wanted to create a button that was like, you hit the button and it was like players two's hit value. So we were able to do the capybara test for it, and we were able to create the hit button, but we didn't know how to get, when you click the button, to get a return value. I was struggling to find like documentation online or resource for that. I don't know if we'll come to that later on. I don't.
The problem you're having, and it's a really interesting question. The problem you're having is that the button, it doesn't trigger any HTTP requests, so you can't use it to make a request to your server and get information and come back. The only way that you could do that is by adding JavaScript to allow that to happen. But we're not worried about that for the moment. So at the moment, the only way we're thinking about the way that the browser can communicate with the server is by using forms. HTML form elements is the only way at the moment we can send GET requests or POST requests. So any communication, you have to go through the form element and like the submit buttons. When we come through JavaScript, we'll think about how we can add event triggers to send requests using JavaScript, but not for the moment.
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks. That was the answer I was looking for. Spent ages trying to find out. So,
it makes sense because a submit button looks like a button, but it's a form. So that's the form element is responsible for it.
Yeah, it's just because I went back on like the capybara test, like practice thing we did, and then like I remember on that you'd like click a button and it would return a value. So I was like, if capybara can do it, can we not? Cool.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and pause the. Where is it? Where is the pause? No, just